Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. And obviously, this is a big day because when we were on radio on Friday, we did not yet have word that the release of Pastor Saeed Abedini was imminent, as well as Jason Rezaian, Amir Hekmati as well. So let me tell you what happened. On Friday evening at about 8 o'clock, I received an email from Naghmeh Abedini, that's the wife of Pastor Saeed, that he had in fact been moved to Central Intelligence Office in Iran, in Tehran. I expected that was actually good news. And I say that because moving to the Central Intelligence Office to me indicated that this wasn't just a move to a prison, this was a move to a dispatch place, an area where you'd be debriefed and taken out of. That quickly unfolded over the night. We were on phone calls till very, very early in the morning. The next morning, probably got to sleep around 3:30 or so that morning when we were awoken with the news early at about 6:30 that the judiciary in Iran had released the 4 Americans, and we were then waiting for confirmation. We immediately went, in fact, Logan, you did it. We went to Facebook, mentions online, live, to discuss it.
Yeah, early the morning of release, we got the news and we decided instead of coming into the studio, doing everything we need to do to get the information out as fast as possible, we went straight to Facebook, posted a live 5-minute video kind of debriefing, giving everyone the information of what's happened, and that has been shared multiple thousands upon thousands of times.
Millions.
We've seen millions of times over the last few days. Yep. And it really was an amazing day.
Yeah, and it is an amazing day still. As I'm watching the media now, Saeed Abedini, Amir Hekmati, Jason Rezaian released. Than Bennett's at our office in Washington. Then what's the reaction I know on Capitol Hill? It's mixed with the Iran situation, but what about on the release of the prisoners?
Well, it's a day of rejoicing, plain and simple, Jay. I mean, there are obviously some details here that are troubling to some, but the bottom line is many have engaged, and all of them today are rejoicing that they're home.
Yeah, this was a big win. And we'll talk about that, what the job of the ACLJ was in this kind of case and how you handle it. We have a petition up, though, because you know what I say when these cases are done? Next case. Saeed Abedini's case is closed. It's over. And that's a good thing, and it ended successfully. The next challenge is for the genocide issue for the Christian church in the Middle East. 146,000 signatures on that petition. Join it right now. What a day to speak out for those being persecuted. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
Islamic State jihadists behead, mutilate, and torture Christians. The brutal toll of nearly 1 million Christians have been slaughtered or displaced. ISIS is engaged in the blatant genocide of Christians in the Middle East. Yet, President Obama refuses to recognize the genocide against Christians. He's pressuring the State Department to deny endangered Christians critical legal protections from ISIS's slaughter. The ACLJ is fighting back, aggressively advocating for vital international legal protections for Christians. We've mobilized our offices on Capitol Hill and across the globe, filing crucial legal documents to protect persecuted Christians from ISIS genocide. Stand up for Christians right now. Sign on to our new petition to recognize the genocide and protect Christians. Call now 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
Here's what you got. American Pastor Saeed Abedini has been released, as has Jason Rezaian from the Washington Post and Amir Hekmati, the former sergeant, U.S. Marine. They've been released. A lot of people are asking on Facebook and Periscope, was this a good deal or not a good deal? Here's what you have to understand. Look at our scenario that we're in. We had a case where we get contacted by the wife of an American citizen, a Christian pastor, who has been arrested in Iran. He initially went to the State Department and they got no assistance initially from the State Department. So our job at that point, because we've handled these before, is to do a couple of things. Number one, keep your client alive during the pendency of the hostage taking. And I called them hostages. So our job was keep the client alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that are a lot of the questions that come in. We have some calls kind of related to that too. I think we should maybe go ahead and take one.
Let me just say, can I have one other
sure.
thing? Okay, so keep the client alive, and then 2, ultimately secure their freedom. In this particular case, it was supposed to be independent of the nuclear deal. We never believed that. We knew they were being hostages. We called them hostages. But I'm not going to chastise the president for getting the Americans out. I could say I disagree with the deal with Iran. I think it's a horrible deal. But I'm not chastising the president that at least at the end of the day, we got the Americans out. Do I like the way it went down? No, it should have never been in there in the first place. They should have been out when this whole discussion started over a year ago. But nevertheless, we were not successful at that point. We're successful now. So I hope that adds some of the controversy. Don't look at these as one giant issue. They're not. These were, of course, they're interrelated. We've said that from the beginning. But this is part of what we've got.
All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Robert, who's calling from Sarasota, Florida. Robert, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, how you doing, Jay and Jordan?
Good.
Hey, I got a question for you. I've been listening to you for a couple of years.
Yes, sir.
You guys are really critical
Yeah.
when it comes to Obama and his administration. I just want to know, are you going to give him some credit, him and the Secretary Kerry and everybody else that was involved, for getting these guys home?
Well, here's what I say, Robert. You're right. We are critical of administrations on the policy, and I've been critical, as you know, on the Iran deal because it's not really a deal at all. But I said, and you may have been on hold and maybe couldn't hear it. I just said that at the end of the day, we asked the president and the administration to do something, and that was to get these Americans out, and they did it. Did it take longer than we would have liked? And Robert, you would agree. All of us would agree it took longer than we would have liked. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to say the president didn't do what we asked him specifically to do in meetings with the White House staff, with the Secretary of State's office, with the ambassador of I cannot tell you how many places, Robert, we've been around the globe. And it sounds like you've listened to the broadcast a long time, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. We've been working on this case for a long time. But we're pleased that the president, at least at the end of the day, and I don't like the deal from Iran, that the Americans were released. I thought they should have been released at the outset, but we're glad that they did it, and I sent a note to the president. I don't agree with the president on much. You're right. I've been very critical on the policies and critical on the policy with Iran. I think it's the wrong policy. But we had a job here as the lawyers at the ACLJ, and over 1,100,000 you joined with us in that effort. So a huge thank you to you all, too, because this is the fact of the matter. You mentioned the president. Let me play a comment the president made, and I'll tell you how this kind of moved this thing forward pretty aggressively. This was at the National Prayer Breakfast last year.
Last year, we prayed together for Pastor Saeed Abedini, detained in Iran since 2012. And I was recently in Boise, Idaho, and had the opportunity to meet with Pastor Abedini's beautiful wife and wonderful children, and to convey to them that our country has not forgotten Brother Saeed and that we're doing everything we can to bring him home.
So this is part of global diplomacy. I mean, that's what this was all about at the end of the day. All right, let's take some more calls and comments. 800-684-3110.
Yeah, I think what's clear in that comment that he made last year was he'll do anything that he can to get him home, and that's, I think he even said that in the speech later on. That's precisely what he did, which was, whatever he could to get him home. So that's where you have to look at least the positive of someone who at least met with the
Let me say this. The president also called, look,
yeah,
I have been very critical and will be till the very end of this administration on the policies of this White House, okay? On a host of things. There's been a few times where I've said we've agreed with them on something. The use of drone strikes, the technical aspects of that I thought have been aggressive, and that's been good. Where I've been critical, and I will be critical, is this deal with Iran I think was horrendous. Having said that, the President of the United States called Naghmeh Abedini yesterday and said, you asked for me to get your husband released. I told you I will not forget him, and I will work diligently. And that doesn't mean during that period of the year we did nothing. Our most intense diplomacy was that year. But our job, and I want everybody that's listening to this on radio and on Facebook and Periscope to understand what the mission of the American Center for Law and Justice was in this case, was to keep him alive, Saeed Abedini, and secure his release. And we did that. All right, let's take some more calls.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Thomas, who's calling from Castle Rock, Colorado. Thomas, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Hi, Jay.
Hey, Thomas.
I knew Obama was not doing anything he could do to get him out of that jail.
Yeah.
he finally did something for our country, which as soon as I heard that news, I'm like, it just dawned on me, Jay Sekulow and everybody there finally was working diligently.
Well, we were, Thomas, we were working diligently for 3.5 years, almost 4 years on this case. There were times when it was in the news. There was times when it was not. And that's the nature of diplomacy, Than. And Than was working on this with us. And Than, there were times we were very public about it and times we could not be public about it, including the last 2 months.
This has always been a multi-pronged effort, Jay. I mean, everything from pushing the administration to pushing members of Congress to pushing the United Nations, other international countries. And, I think a lot of people are talking about the nexus here. Well, think back to the very first hearing that we had on this when the State Department didn't even come down the street to show up to testify. That's how much of a struggle it was at one point.
Yes.
We worked really hard to change the engagement. And think about how far it went. Not only did you get the president's comments that you just played, the president personally met with Naghmeh Abedini and the children. So this was all part of the strategy, Jay. Were they in the right place naturally and immediately? No. But that is why we engaged. And at the end of the day, today is a good day. They got to the right place, and Saeed is coming home.
And the case is closed. I need to reiterate that. I mean, what we said on Saturday when we did that video piece, the case is closed. We have done what our task was in this particular case, which was to secure the release of the pastor. We were encouraging the other Americans, as Stan just mentioned. We had times when the State Department didn't even show up for congressional hearings, and we went to work on this and fought back. And the good news here is we were successful, but we couldn't have done it without you all. And I don't want to get into the politics. I'll talk about it, but I am not going to be critical of the president for finally, at the end of the day, getting the Americans home. I mean, you could be critical of the president on a lot of policy points, and believe me, I am. But in my communications with the White House this weekend, I told them thank you. Why? Well, first of all, we may have more of these. In fact, three have been taken today out of Iraq. So it doesn't stop for us today. We've got other cases we're handling right now. So, every once in a while, you sit back and you reflect and you say, okay, at the end of the day, this was a good conclusion. Does that mean the deal with Iran was great? I think the deal with Iran was awful. I don't think I could be any clearer. Is it great that the Americans are released? Yeah, it's great that the Americans are released. Comments coming in?
Sure, there's some comments coming in. A lot of people are curious about the specifics of the deal. There's also thoughts on Bob Levinson, his current situation. The president spoke about that a little bit as well.
Yeah,
saying that we continue to search for him at this point.
The Iranians said that they will cooperate in searching for the whereabouts of Robert Levinson. I mean, it's been 4 years, I guess, since anyone has heard from him. So I suspect that's probably not good news, although we're going to continue to hold the Levinson family in prayer. But this case is, Than, very quickly here, say it again, went from zero to conclusion. It was 3.5 years, and we started at ground zero here.
It went to a point, Jay, where the State Department was telling Naghmeh that there was nothing that could be done, and they wouldn't even send someone down the street to tell Congress the same thing, to the point where the president is personally meeting with the family, and now Pastor Saeed is home. And listen, just to be forward-looking on this, like you've been, Jay, this also gives us an opening to say to the administration, this is why that designation of genocide is so important. Pastor Saeed is not the only one. There are others around the world.
Yeah, well, so let me give you the status of Pastor Saeed. So he was taken, they came out through Switzerland, which is normally diplomatically how these are handled, was transferred on another aircraft with the other Americans. They are in a hospital at Ramstein Air Force Base, a military base in Germany. So they are technically on U.S.-controlled soil in that sense, but they are being evaluated. We got a question on Facebook right now. Let me answer that question, Logan. Do you have it there?
I can pull it up here. Facebook said, when will Americans come back to the U.S.? Was the question from Caleb.
When will the Americans come back to the U.S.? We don't know yet. They are being still medically evaluated. Could be days, could be weeks. Don't know yet. We'll keep your thoughts and prayers for them. Hey, we're taking more of your calls when we come back from the break at 800-684-3110. Again, we're at 147,000 signatures on that petition on genocide and growing. Let's get it to 150,000. Today's going to be the last day we hit this issue. Easy to do, aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. And don't forget this, with all the hard work of the ACLJ and all of your support, at the end, God did this. Back with more in a moment.
Islamic State jihadists behead, mutilate, and torture Christians. The brutal toll of nearly 1 million Christians have been slaughtered or displaced. ISIS is engaged in the blatant genocide of Christians in the Middle East. Yet, President Obama refuses to recognize the genocide against Christians. He's pressuring the State Department to deny endangered Christians critical legal protections from ISIS's slaughter. The ACLJ is fighting back, aggressively advocating for vital international legal protections for Christians. We've mobilized our offices on Capitol Hill and across the globe, filing crucial legal documents to protect persecuted Christians from ISIS genocide. Stand up for Christians right now. Sign on to our new petition to recognize the genocide and protect Christians. Call now 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
So if you're just joining us and haven't heard the news, which about 2.5 million people have, because we went to Facebook on, which is a great way to be able to do this on Saturday morning early when I got word it was confirmed, and about 2 million, almost 2,400,000 people have viewed it. And we went to Facebook to say that Pastor Saeed Abedini has been released along with the other Americans. So this was a very good conclusion to a very difficult case. So we got a lot of calls and comments coming in. We want to go right to them. Than Bennett's in our studios in D.C. Logan and I are here in our media center. We're going to take as many calls and comments as we can.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Maria, who's calling from Santa Maria, California. You're on the air.
Yes. Good morning.
Hi, Maria.
Hi. First of all, I would like to thank God for the release of the Americans and Pastor Saeed. And thank you for your hard work and everyone that had been praying for him. We want to welcome each and every one of them home. And we've been praying for him ever since his arrest.
Yep.
And never gave up. And this is to show us that prayer do get answered.
Absolutely.
Never give up. And thank you for all your hard work that you've done, because I know that you guys had a lot to do with it, too.
Well, Maria, look, as I said, this was God did this. We were a part of what God used to do it, but God gets the credit for it. It has been a long weekend. The weekend is over, but to me, my weekend kind of blurred into my week. And but the conclusion is good. We're pleased with it. And as I said, the case is closed. I mean, for us, he is in U.S. custody. When I say custody, in U.S. Air Force Base or military base, Ramstein, Germany, and that was our mission has been accomplished. So we've got a lot of other cases involving persecution. We're going to get to that. We got this genocide issue that is front and center right now. But again, a huge thank you to so many of you that have been praying for 3.5, almost 4 years. Someone asked me, how's all this going to play out? Well, he's been gone from his family for 4 years. I mean, this is a difficult, these transitions are very tough.
Yeah, we have a call kind of related to that. Let's go to Susan from California on line 4. Susan, you're on the air.
Hey, Susan.
First of all, I just wanted to say I echo what Maria said, and thank God for ACLJ. What would we do without you guys? And I also wanted to say, praise God that Pastor Saeed was released. Now let's pray for him and his family as they've gone through so many difficult situations, and they need to readjust to being out of prison and all his medical issues,
right,
and reintegrating with the family. But we just thank God so much for what he did and how he used ACLJ and how you guys exist. You're so important.
Well, Susan, this was a case where you had to have tenacity, and I'm very proud of our entire team who worked on this case for almost 4 years. It has had a good conclusion, but you're right to pray for the family. Let me say this. These are there's no one on this broadcast in our orbit, and I suspect no one, the millions of people that are listening to us and the tens of thousands watching us on Facebook and Periscope, I don't think any of us can put ourselves in the place of the Hekmati family, the Abedini family, or the Rezaian family on what they've gone through here,
right, and
what the transition back home is going to be like.
Right. Our job was to help get him facilitated, get him out of prison, and from at that point on, it's not like that's the end of the road for the family. Definitely
that's the beginning.
Definitely keep them in your prayers. But for us, our job is complete, as you said.
Yeah.
And now it's continue to pray for them.
Yeah, pray for them because these transitions are tough. I mean, you look at Saeed's situation. He's been gone. He and Hekmati were in the longest. I mean, Saeed's basically been away from his family for almost a half a decade.
Right.
I mean, think about that for a moment. So, look, this is going to take healing and time, but our job, and this is why I want to be very clear here, the ACLJ's mission, keep them alive, get them out, Case has been closed successfully. We're on to the next case, but obviously rejoicing in the victories here. More calls, more comments.
People are asking about Asia Bibi and some of the other cases we've brought up kind of randomly throughout tonight's show.
So Asia Bibi's case is ongoing. Fan, let's talk about how our advocacy hasn't. I mean, we've been doing multiple party advocacy, including the Sudanese that were released, the 2 pastors. We got that released. In the middle of this, we had another Iranian pastor's case we've been advocating for. He was released. It didn't get much fanfare, but you've got a team, Fan, when you're dealing with this in Washington. We're working on this all the time, all over the globe.
This is really the nexus here, Jay. I mean, there are always more of these cases. I mean, it's part of the reason that Saeed Abedini's case resolved favorably is because we got out there, we told the stories, and we raised his profile to a point where it wasn't secret and Iran couldn't deal with him in private. We are doing the same thing on a number of other cases. I mean, you mentioned Asia Bibi. There are other names that some of you, that people will know. You know, Yusuf Nadarkhani was successful. People know the name Miriam Ibrahim. But there are others that are not names, Jay, and there's a strategic reason for that. We have to constantly evaluate these cases and decide which ones to go public with. It's a delicate balance, but that is really our job. The last callers mentioned prayer. That needs to continue, but our job is to push the legal case, the diplomatic case. We'll do it here, and we'll do it around the world.
And literally around the globe as we do it. Let's take another call before the break here. And there's an interesting comment about their health. I'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, we got that. A lot of people are asking about that.
All right, can we do that now?
Yeah, why don't we say it? People are asking.
All right,
the health is of all of them.
Yeah, so on all 3 of them. So they're being evaluated. So this is, look, they were in an Iranian prison, some for 18 months in Jason Rezaian's case, 4 years for Amir Hekmati, over 3.5 years, almost 4 years for Saeed Abedini. So their health is of a consequence and is a significant issue. They are being evaluated in the hospital in Germany. That people are saying, are they in a room? They're in hospital rooms. I mean, as of right now, last we heard, so that they're in hospital rooms being evaluated for medical needs. We know that we know all 3 of them needed medical care. They weren't getting it, obviously, but that's being worked on now. But and they could be it could be days, it could be weeks. We don't know the answer to that.
All right, I think we should take another call before we go to break. Let's go to Mary Ellen, who's calling from Chicago on line 5. Mary Ellen, welcome to Jason.
Hi. Before my quick question, I just want to give God the glory and thank you for all your work, even going to the UN with Naghmeh. That was awesome.
We had, by the way, Mary Ellen, not only did we go to the UN with Naghmeh, we had our offices in Africa make statements at the United Nations. We had our offices in Strasbourg, France, make statements to the United Nations. Van's been there. Jordan's been there. I mean, it's been a big effort. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm sure and we continue praying for them. My question is, do we know about the woman who was left behind, the wife of one of the prisoners, and also why the swap of 7 versus our 4 or 5? Do we know anything?
The 7 versus 4 or 5. First of all, I think it's more than 5 are going to be released. I think this is an ongoing situation. Rezaian's wife, Jason Rezaian's wife, did come home with him. There was a question of Rezaian's mother, whether she was going to come home or not, and I don't know she was Iranian, whether she was going to leave. I don't know the status of that. The 4 that were, our 4 were, of course, unjustly detained. The 7 that were released either had their sentences commuted, they were already convicted, or charges dropped. They were charges for doing business with Iran, not per se terrorism with Iran. They weren't terrorists that were released. Yeah, again, that's just part of the, listen, these swaps happen all the time. This is part of military exercise. And have we been at war with Iran? Maybe like a Cold War, but yeah. And I think, are the relationships better? Who knows? You know what I know? 4 Americans are out. And let's go ahead and grab another call.
Yeah, let's go back to the phones. Michelle is calling from Cape Cod. Line 2, you're on the air.
Hey,
Jay,
Michelle.
thanks for having me on. I just want to thank God and thank you guys. I mean, I have 2 young children, 5 and 7, and we have prayed faithfully to see Saeed released, and to see that for my kids is just a testimony to their faith. To see believers across the country and across the world really come together. And Naghmeh has just been an amazing inspiration, to me as a wife and as a mother. And I've had
1,100,000 people joined in the petition alone, and there were prayer vigils all around the globe. So
we were talking about is the people that did speak out, whether it was people like Michelle, the 1.1 million, just regular citizens that came out worldwide and supported this, or whether that was people that are currently on the main stage of the presidential candidates that were out there speaking about Saeed.
Just about every one of them.
Just about every one of them has done something either publicly or privately. We can say that as well in support of the Abedini family. All right, let's take one more call before we go to break. Sarah's calling from Rockville, Maryland. You're on the air.
Hi, Sarah.
Getting that news on Saturday and seeing you, Jay, boy, did you look tired. Oh, but happy. The sun shines brighter, thank God. God works in wonderful ways.
Well, Logan will give you the details of how we did that.
But I want to ask you something, and not to dampen anything.
Bob Levinson.
Yeah. Horrible
Okay,
situation.
Enough said.
Yeah, no, listen, we grieve for the Levinson family. I still grieve for the Levinson family, and we're going to still continue to bring that up. I'm sure he's got his counsel working on that too. But let Logan give you a little quick history of what happened that morning.
Yeah, that morning I
got to sleep that morning about an hour and a half before we did that video.
I got a text message saying that there were reports that the unnamed
that's what
it was really just unnamed people were released. Americans is what was suspected were being released and being transferred from Iran. We had gotten word the late night before that it looked like things were happening, so that seemed like a good move. And then about an hour later, around 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm not sure what time it was, we got the news that it was specifically Saeed. And then you start seeing that breaking on TV. Once it was officially confirmed, we went on Facebook, did the video just with my iPhone, and that video has reached millions of people announcing the release of Pastor Saeed.
Lee calling from Chesapeake, Virginia.
Do you guys have any forecasting mechanisms as to what parts of the world hostage taking because of Christian faith or being incarcerated because of Christian faith?
Well, look, the Middle East is a hotbed for this. You know that. I mean, is the truth. There's been problems in Turkey. They've had missionaries killed in Turkey. I mean, it happens everywhere. I mean, it's unfortunate. But I in a situation like this, the mission board, the sending agency, let your daughter know what the risks are and how to best protect yourself in the environment. But they're called to missions. They're called to missions. So these are not without risk. It wasn't without risk for Saeed. It wasn't without risk. It's not without risk for your daughter or anybody that's engaged in mission work. So especially in countries where the faith is hostile. And that's what you got in some of these. So, Lee, thanks for calling in. Again, for those that are online right now, watching on Facebook, Periscope, SiriusXM, hearing us taped delayed, or maybe hearing us on our website, go to aclj.org, support the work of the ACLJ, and sign that petition today as well. aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. I urge you to engage on this issue. It's really a critical time. Support the work of the ACLJ. Easy way to do it, aclj.org, and pray for these families as a difficult reunification process starts. As you can imagine, some of these folks have been gone for 4 years from their families. We'll have more on this tomorrow.
Hello?
Saeed?
Vale, yes?
This is Jay Sekulow.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, Saeed. It sure is glad. I'm glad to hear your voice. I've not heard your voice.
Me too. I was waiting for that for so long.
First, let me ask you, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Today was like my first day, of my life. So I thought I was born again.
Yeah.
I hope being born again. So it was doing great. May God bless you for everything you did. I love your passion.
Thanks.
For the work of God and for Lord.
All right, rest up.
Okay, may God bless you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.